chosen one, there is a reason your life has not followed the path that was given to everyone else. There is a reason the weight on your shoulders has been heavier, the nights have been longer, and the tests have come in waves that never seem to end. You were not given the standard assignment. You were handed the version of the test that God reserves for those whose calling requires a foundation so deep that nothing built upon it can ever be shaken. This was not cruelty. This was precision. And I need you to understand something before we go any further. The same God who measured the depth of your calling is the one who measured the difficulty of your fire. He calibrated every single trial to the exact degree your spirit could bear without breaking, and then he watched, not from a distance. He watched the way a master craftsman watches his finest work emerge from the furnace. He watched you choose faith when logic said quit. He watched you stay quiet when your flesh wanted war. He watched you get back up the morning after you swore you could not do it one more time. And his verdict, spoken in a place you have not yet been shown, is this: you passed, not barely, not by accident. You passed because you are exactly who he built you to be. This message found you because that verdict is ready to be unsealed. What I am about to walk you through will reveal the 3 truths behind your hardest season, the specific tool for your next chapter, and the declaration that heaven has been holding for this exact moment. Stay with me until the very end of this message, because what I am about to share is not just encouragement, it is a divine unsealing. By the time we reach the end, you will understand why your test was the hardest version ever given. You will have a practical framework to navigate the season you are entering right now. And I will speak a declaration over your life that I believe will stay with you long after you leave this space. Do not let anything pull you away from this. What is about to be revealed was timed for you and you alone. And I want you to know something. This message did not appear in your life by coincidence. You did not stumble upon it. You were guided here by the same hand that has been guiding you through every storm, every closed door, every season of silence when you thought you had been left behind. There is a force older than your circumstances and wiser than your fears that brought your attention to this moment. Not because you needed to hear something nice today, but because the timing is right. The test is concluding, and before you can step into what is next, you need to understand what you just walked through and why it was so unbearably heavy. There is a fire in this world that does not burn to destroy. It burns to reveal, and there is a pressure that does not crush to punish. It compresses to create something the world cannot manufacture on its own. Fire and pressure together. That is the combination reserved for gold. That is the combination reserved for diamonds. And chosen one. That is the combination that has been applied to your life. Not because God wanted to watch you suffer, but because what he is forming in you required the exact fire you walked through and the exact pressure you endured. Remember that as we move forward, you were not placed in the fire because you were weak. You were placed in the fire because of what you are becoming. Now let me show you something that will begin to shift everything, because here is what most people miss. There are signs, real observable signs, that the test is ending, signs that have already started appearing in your life. But because you have been in survival mode for so long, because your body and your mind have been bracing for the next hit for months or even years, you have not been able to see these signs for what they really are. You have been misreading them. You have been calling them something else entirely. You thought it was anxiety. You thought it was depression. You thought it was burnout. You thought it was loneliness catching up to you. You thought it was your body falling apart for no reason. But what if I told you that almost every single one of those experiences is actually a sign that the fire is cooling, that the test is winding down? That your spirit is already beginning to process the shift before your mind catches up. Let me walk you through them one at a time, because the more of these signs you recognize in your own life right now, the more certain you can be that what I am sharing is not general encouragement. It is your story being read back to you. The first sign is the unexpected tears. You have been crying at strange times, and for no clear reason. Not the kind of crying that comes from a specific sadness, not grief over a particular loss, but a deep welling up that catches you off guard in the middle of an ordinary moment. You could be driving. You could be washing dishes. You could be lying in bed staring at the ceiling. And suddenly your eyes fill up, and something inside your chest loosens in a way you cannot explain. You have been wondering what is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. What you are experiencing is spiritual pressure being released. Think of it this way. When a diver has been deep underwater for a long time and they begin to surface, the change in pressure causes the body to respond in ways that feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is not a sign of danger. It is a sign of ascent. Your tears are not a symptom of breakdown. They are a symptom of breakthrough. Your spirit is surfacing from the deepest dive it has ever taken, and the tears are your body's way of adjusting to a pressure that is finally beginning to lift. The second sign is the strange peace that comes and goes without warning. One moment, you feel a heaviness you cannot shake. The next moment, out of nowhere, a calm settles over you that does not match your circumstances. Your problems have not changed. Your bank account has not changed. The people around you have not changed. But something inside you shifts, and for a few hours, sometimes a few minutes, you feel a peace that makes no logical sense, and then it leaves, and then it returns, like waves. You have been confused by this. You have been calling it mood swings. But what you are actually experiencing is the first signals of a new frequency trying to stabilize in your life. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of a verdict. And that verdict is trying to land in your spirit, but your survival patterns keep interfering. The peace comes when your spirit hears the truth. The heaviness returns when your mind argues with it. This back and forth is not instability, it is transition, and it will not last forever. The peace is winning. If you felt something shift in your chest when you heard those words, if something inside you just said, yes, then type, I recognize this, in the comments right now. Not because I asked you to, but because your spirit just confirmed something that your mind has been arguing with. Let your comment be your agreement. The third sign is that your tolerance has changed. Things that used to be normal to you have become unbearable. Conversations that you used to participate in without thinking now feel exhausting. Environments that you used to sit in comfortably now feel suffocating. People whose energy you used to absorb without noticing now drain you within minutes. And you have been feeling guilty about it. You have been telling yourself that you are becoming antisocial, that you are being too sensitive, that something is wrong with you for not being able to tolerate what everyone else seems fine with. But nothing is wrong with you. What happened is that the test recalibrated your frequency. The fire burned away your tolerance for things that are not aligned with where you are going. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming clear. The things that no longer fit are the things that were never supposed to come with you into your next season. Your discomfort is not a flaw. It is divine discernment activating in real time. The fourth sign is the shift in your sleep. Your sleep patterns have changed, and not always in ways that feel comfortable. Some of you have been waking up at unusual hours, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, with a clarity in your mind that you do not have during the day. Others have been sleeping more heavily than usual, as though your body is catching up on rest it has been denied for years. And some of you have been having dreams that are different from the dreams you used to have. More vivid, more specific, more layered with meaning that you cannot quite decode when you wake up, but that stays with you throughout the day, like a song you heard once and cannot forget. This is not insomnia. This is not oversleeping. This is your nervous system recalibrating after extended time in survival mode. When a soldier comes home from war, the body does not immediately switch from combat mode to peace mode. It takes time. There are nights of restlessness. There are days of deep exhaustion. The body has to learn that the fight is over, and your body, chosen one, has been at war for a very long time. The changes in your sleep are your system beginning to believe that the fire is no longer an immediate threat. The fifth sign is one that very few people talk about, but almost every chosen one experiences during this transition. It is the feeling that something enormous is approaching. You cannot see it. You cannot name it. You cannot point to any specific evidence in your external world that anything major is about to happen. But deep in your gut, deeper than logic, deeper than hope, there is a knowing that something is shifting on a scale you have not experienced before. You have been trying to dismiss this feeling. You have been telling yourself that you are just being wishful, that you are building something up in your mind that will not actually happen, that you have been disappointed too many times to trust that feeling. But I want you to hear me clearly. That feeling is not fantasy. That feeling is your spirit detecting a verdict that has already been spoken in the heavenly court before it manifests in your physical reality. It is the spiritual equivalent of feeling a storm approaching before the first cloud appears. The atmosphere changes before the rain falls, and the atmosphere of your life is changing right now. The sixth sign is the sudden increase in spiritual sensitivity. Things that used to pass you by without a second thought now catch your attention in a way they never did before. A conversation overheard in a store that speaks directly to what you have been praying about. A song that comes on at the exact moment you needed those words. A number that keeps appearing on clocks, on receipts, on addresses, until you cannot ignore it anymore. You are not imagining this. Your spiritual senses have been sharpened by the fire you just walked through. Prolonged testing has a way of stripping away the noise that blocks divine signals. And now that the noise is reduced, now that so much of what used to fill your life has been burned away, you are hearing and seeing with a clarity that you did not have before. This is not coincidence. This is calibrated communication. God is speaking, and for the first time in a long time, the channel is clear enough for you to hear him. The seventh sign is the one that ties all the others together, and it is perhaps the most misunderstood of all. It is the feeling of being completely, profoundly alone. Not lonely in the way that comes from having no one around you, but alone in the way that comes from having no one who fully understands the depth of what you have just walked through. You can be in a room full of people who love you and still feel a gap, a space between your experience and their comprehension that no amount of conversation can bridge. This is not rejection. This is not abandonment. This is the isolation that every tested soul experiences at the end of their proving ground, because what you have carried was never meant to be shared with everyone. It was between you and God. The isolation you feel is not a punishment. It is the exam room being cleared. When a surgeon finishes a complex operation, the room is cleared before the patient is moved to recovery. What you feel as loneliness is actually the clearing of the space around you so that your recovery can begin without interference. Now, I want to pause here for a moment. If you recognized yourself in 3 or more of those signs, then I want you to understand something with every fiber of your being. You are not just someone who stumbled onto this message. You are the exact person this was designed for. The specificity of what you just heard was not generic. It was targeted, and the reason it landed so precisely is because these are the markers, the verified indicators that the test is complete. And if something in your spirit just shifted, if there is a part of you that knows what I am saying is true, even though your mind is still arguing with it, then type, "I see it now." Let those words be your line in the sand. The moment you stopped just listening and started receiving. But here is what I need you to hear. Knowing that you passed is only the first layer. And if this first layer alone was the truth, it would already be enough to change the way you see everything. But there is more. Beneath this layer is a deeper truth that will rewrite how you understand not just this season, but your entire life. Because the real question is not whether you passed. The real question, the one that changes everything, is this: why were you tested in the first place? And why was your version the hardest one? But before I take you there, let me share something that connects to a discovery I will fully reveal later in this message. Scientists in some of the world's most respected research institutions have recently confirmed something that the spiritual community has sensed for a very long time. Your brain operates on specific frequencies. And there is one particular frequency, a frequency that was fully active when you were a child, that becomes suppressed under prolonged stress and environmental conditioning. When this frequency is active, your mind operates in what researchers call a state of flow. Intuition sharpens, clarity deepens, decisions that used to take weeks happen in moments. And when it is dormant, everything feels harder than it should, everything requires more effort than it should, and the connection to the divine that used to feel natural begins to feel blocked. I am going to come back to this later because it connects directly to something that can accelerate what is happening in your life right now. But hold that thought, let it sit. Because what comes next is the truth that will explain why God did not just test you, He gave you the hardest version. That is what the next part of this message is about. And it begins with a man who lived thousands of years before you, whose story reads like a mirror of your own. There is a man whose life I want you to study, not because his name is famous in churches, not because his story is printed in books, but because what he endured is the closest recorded parallel to what you have been walking through. His name is Joseph. And if you think your test was difficult, let me walk you through his. Joseph was not born into struggle. He was born into favor. He had a gift that set him apart from his brothers, a gift of sight, a gift of dreams, a gift that allowed him to perceive the future before it arrived. And from a very young age, it was clear to everyone around him that this boy carried something different. His father saw it, his brothers saw it, and God saw it. But here is where the story takes the turn that mirrors your own. The very gift that marked Joseph as special is the same gift that made him a target. His brothers did not hate him because he was weak. They hated him because of what they could see in him that they could not find in themselves. And so they did the unthinkable. They took him, they threw him into a pit, and they sold him into slavery. Now think about that for a moment. This is a young man who was given a dream by God, a divine vision of a future where he would stand in a position of authority, where nations would look to him for guidance, where his family would one day bow before the very gift they tried to destroy. God gave him that dream, and then God allowed the floor to fall out from under him. The same God who showed him the palace allowed him to be dragged into the pit. And if you have ever had a moment where God showed you something beautiful about your future, and then your life fell apart immediately after, then you already know exactly how Joseph felt at the bottom of that hole. But the pit was not the end of his test. It was the beginning. From the pit, Joseph was sold to a man named Potiphar. And in Potiphar's house, Joseph did not collapse. He did not grow bitter. He did not curse the heavens and give up on the dream. Instead, he served with such excellence that he was promoted to the highest position in the household. Everything Potiphar owned was placed under Joseph's care. And just when it seemed like the worst was behind him, just when it seemed like the fire was cooling, the test escalated. Potiphar's wife falsely accused him. And Joseph, a man who had done nothing wrong, a man who had maintained his integrity in the hardest circumstances, was thrown into prison. Not for a month, not for a season, for years. Do you see the pattern? This was not a single test. This was a cascade. Betrayal upon betrayal, loss upon loss, injustice upon injustice. Each time Joseph rose, the fire pushed him back down. Each time it looked like the worst was over, a new wave came. And if you are honest with yourself right now, if you let that guard down for just a moment, you will admit that Joseph's pattern looks uncomfortably familiar, because you have lived it. You have climbed out of one pit, only to be pushed into another. You have survived one betrayal, only to face a new one from a direction you never expected. And there have been moments you have never spoken out loud to anyone, where you looked up at the heavens and asked the same question Joseph must have asked in that prison cell. Why? If I am yours, why is this so hard? If you chose me, why does it feel like everything is working against me? The answer is the first of 3 truths I promised you, and it will change how you see every difficult day you have ever lived. God did not test Joseph to punish him. God tested Joseph to reveal him. There is a difference between building character and revealing character. The fire did not give Joseph his integrity. The fire proved that the integrity was already there. The prison did not give Joseph his patience. The prison proved that the patience had been planted in him long before the test began. Every level of the test was not designed to create something new in Joseph. It was designed to show to heaven and to earth and to Joseph himself what was already woven into the fabric of his spirit. And this is true for you as well. What you walked through did not make you strong. It proved you were already strong. What you endured did not give you faith. It demonstrated that the faith was already in you. The hardest test is not a manufacturing process. It is an unveiling. It is an X-ray of the soul. And what the fire revealed in you, chosen one, is something that cannot be faked, cannot be taught, and cannot be bought. It was there before the test began. The test simply made it undeniable. But there is a second purpose to divine testing that goes even deeper, and this is the one that most people never understand. God does not just test to reveal what is inside you. He tests to build the capacity for what he is sending toward you. Think of it this way. A foundation determines the height of the building. If God plans to build a 10-story life on your shoulders, he only needs a 10-story foundation. But if God plans to build a skyscraper, if what he has planned for you is so large and so tall and so far-reaching that it will be visible from a distance, then the foundation must go deeper than anything around it. The depth of your suffering has been proportional to the height of what God is building on your life. The heavier the test, the taller the tower being prepared. And the reason your foundation had to be dug so deep, the reason the excavation felt so painful, is because what is about to be built on top of it requires the kind of stability that only comes from being tested at the deepest level. And there is a third purpose, perhaps the most strategic one of all. God tests to establish authority that cannot be questioned. When Joseph finally stood before Pharaoh, when he was elevated from prisoner to second in command over all of Egypt, no one could say he got there by favoritism. No one could say he was promoted because of connections. No one could say he was handed that position. Every single person who knew his story understood that this man had been through a fire so intense that his very survival was proof of divine endorsement. His authority was unquestionable because his testing was undeniable, and this is what God is doing with you. The level of your test is establishing the kind of authority that does not need to defend itself. When people see what you have walked through, and then see what you are walking into, they will not ask how you got there. The fire will have already answered that question. Before I show you the next layer, I want to ask you something. If what I have been sharing has opened something in your understanding, if the picture is becoming clearer, then gently press the like button, not for me, so that this message can reach someone who is still in the middle of their test and needs to know that it has a purpose, that it has an end, that the fire they are sitting in right now was never meant to be permanent. Now let me give you something you can carry with you, a framework for understanding where you have been and where you are right now. I call it the Proving Ground Protocol, and it has 3 stages. The first stage is the entry. This is the moment the test begins. It usually comes as a shock, something sudden, something you did not see coming, a loss, a betrayal, a collapse, a diagnosis, a door slamming shut that you thought would stay open forever. The entry stage is disorienting because it violates your expectations. You had a plan, you had a vision, you had a picture of how your life was supposed to unfold, and the entry shattered that picture without warning. If you can look back at your life and identify the exact moment things shifted, the exact moment the ground cracked beneath your feet, then you have identified your entry point. That was not the beginning of your destruction. That was the beginning of your test. The second stage is the crucible. This is the longest and most painful stage. The crucible is not a single event. It is a sustained season of fire. It is the period after the initial shock where the testing does not let up, where you keep expecting things to improve, and they do not. Where you keep praying for relief, and the relief does not come in the way you expected. The crucible is where most people break, not because they are weak, but because the crucible is specifically designed to outlast human willpower. It is designed to push you past the point where your own strength can carry you, so that you are forced to rely on something deeper, something divine. The crucible is not a test of your ability, it is a test of your surrender. And if you are still here, if you did not walk away from your faith, if you did not permanently harden your heart, even when it would have been easier to do so, then you survived the crucible. And very few can say that. The third stage is the emergence. And this is the stage you are in right now. The emergence does not look like what most people expect. It is not a dramatic explosion of blessings. It is not a sudden reversal of every problem. The emergence is quieter than that. It begins with the signs I described earlier, the tears, the shifting peace, the changed tolerance, the feeling that something enormous is approaching. The emergence is the season where the fire cools, the pressure lifts, and you begin to realize that you are still standing, not because you were strong enough, but because the one who assigned the test was never going to let it destroy you. He watched the temperature the entire time. He knew exactly how much you could take, and he never let the fire exceed your design specification. If something just clicked in your spirit, if you can see the 3 stages playing out in your own life, like a map you have been walking without knowing it, then type, "I understand now." Let that be your acknowledgement that the picture is becoming clear. I want to show you what the test formed in you, because it did not leave you empty. The fire produced something, and what it produced is not fragile. It is not temporary. What the test built inside you has the permanence of metal that has been through the furnace. What felt like punishment was actually preparation. What felt like abandonment was actually the clearing of the examination room. What felt like silence from heaven was actually the proctor's required quiet during the final hour of the test. What felt like cruelty was actually calibration. What felt like the end was actually the last question before the results were finalized. Every single thing you walked through had a purpose. Not a vague, abstract, the universe works in mysterious ways kind of purpose. A specific, targeted, engineered purpose. The patience you carry today was not something you were born with. It was forged in the furnace of unanswered prayers. You learned to wait because you had no other choice. And that enforced waiting developed in you a steadiness that cannot be shaken by temporary delays. The discernment you now carry was sharpened by betrayal. You learned to read people because you had to. Because the cost of trusting blindly was carved into your history by people who did not deserve the access you gave them. And that painful education gave you a gift that no classroom could ever teach. You can see through masks now, not because you are cynical, but because the fire taught you what authenticity looks like by showing you what it does not look like. The faith you carry was deepened not by miracles, but by silence. You prayed and heard nothing. You cried out and the sky was quiet, and still, somehow, you held on. That kind of faith, faith that does not require evidence to survive, is the rarest form of belief on earth. And you carry it not because someone taught it to you in a sermon, but because the crucible burned away every version of faith that was not strong enough to withstand the fire. And here is what I need you to hear. The person who entered the test and the person who is listening to these words right now are not the same person. The fire changed you, not in the way you feared it would. Not by making you harder or colder or more closed off. The fire changed you by removing everything that was not truly yours, every false identity, every borrowed belief. Every mask you wore to be acceptable to people who were never supposed to have that kind of power over you. What remains after the fire is the real you, stripped, tested, proven. And that proven version of you is what the next season requires. Remember the fire I described at the beginning of this message? The fire that does not burn to destroy, but burns to reveal. The furnace I asked you to hold in your mind, you are still standing inside it, but the temperature is beginning to change. Where it was once unbearably hot, you are now feeling the first waves of warmth instead of burning. And that warmth, chosen one, is not just comfort, it is evidence. Evidence that the refining process is entering its final phase. But knowing that you were tested and knowing why you were tested is not the deepest truth. There is a layer beneath this one. A revelation that will change how you see every difficult day you have ever lived. Because the real question is not just why you were tested. The real question, the one that rewrites everything, is why God gave you the hardest version. Why yours was more intense, more relentless, more painful than what anyone around you seemed to carry. And that, chosen one, is what I need to show you next. Because the answer to that question contains the key to your entire identity. The answer to that question, the question of why your version was the hardest, is what separates this message from anything you have ever heard before. Because most people will tell you that God tests everyone the same way, that suffering is random, that life is just hard, and you need to learn to deal with it. But that is not the truth. And the truth, when you hear it, will rewrite the story you have been telling yourself about your entire life. There is a principle operating beneath the surface of every divine test that very few people ever learn. I want you to listen carefully, because this is not something I say lightly. The difficulty of your test was not random. It was calibrated. Specifically, precisely, and intentionally calibrated. And the variable that determined the difficulty level, the single factor that decided whether you received the easy version or the medium version or the version that would push you past every human limit, was not your sin. It was not your mistakes. It was not your karma. The variable was your capacity. Let me say that again, so it lands where it needs to land. The difficulty of the test you received was directly proportional to the capacity of the soul being tested. God does not give the hardest version to the weakest. He gives it to the strongest. Not the strongest in the way the world measures strength, not the loudest or the most confident or the most successful. The strongest in the way heaven measures strength. The ones with the deepest wells of faith. The ones with the widest shoulders for carrying weight that others cannot see. The ones whose calling is so large that the foundation required to support it must be dug deeper than anyone around them can comprehend. Think about that for a moment. Your test was not harder because God forgot about you. Your test was harder because God trusts you more than you trust yourself. He looked at the blueprints of your life. He saw the magnitude of what he planned to build on top of your story, and he knew that a shallow foundation would never hold it. So he dug deep, deeper than anyone around you had to go, deeper than what seemed fair, deeper than what seemed necessary. And every time you cried out and asked, "Why is this so hard?" Every time you looked at the people around you living easier lives and wondered what you did wrong, every time you questioned whether God even remembered your name, the answer was the same. The depth of the excavation matched the height of the structure. And what God is building on your life, chosen one, required the deepest dig of all. This is not flattery. This is architecture. The same principle that governs skyscrapers governs divine assignments. A one-story house needs a shallow foundation. A 10-story building needs something deeper. But a tower that is meant to be seen from every direction, a structure that is designed to stand when everything around it falls, that requires a foundation so deep that the digging alone looks like destruction to anyone watching from the surface. And that is exactly what your life has looked like from the outside. It looked like destruction. It looked like collapse. It looked like everything was falling apart. But from heaven's perspective, from the perspective of the architect who drew the blueprints before you were born, every loss was excavation. Every betrayal was removal of unstable ground. Every tear was the clearing of soil that could not support what was coming. And this is not by accident, and this is not by chance, and this is not random, and this is by divine design. Now, I want to take you somewhere deeper, into the original language of the text that describes this very principle. Because when you see what the word test actually means in its original form, it will change how you understand everything God has been doing. In the book of Genesis, chapter 22, there is a moment that stands as perhaps the most extreme test ever recorded in sacred history. God came to Abraham, a man who had waited decades for a son, a man whose entire legacy and promise was wrapped up in the life of his boy Isaac. And God said to him, "Take your son, your only son, the one you love, and offer him." Now, the word used in the original Hebrew text for what God did to Abraham is the word nasa, and this is where most translations lose the depth of what actually happened. In English, the word test carries the connotation of something designed to make you fail, like a trick question on an exam, like a trap set by someone who wants to catch you making a mistake. But the Hebrew word nasa means something entirely different. Nasa means to prove, to assay, to try the way a metallurgist tests the purity of gold, not to see if the gold will break, but to demonstrate that the gold is real. When a goldsmith places metal into a furnace, the purpose is not destruction. The purpose is verification. The fire does not create the gold. The gold was already gold before it entered the furnace. What the fire does is remove everything that is not gold, everything that was mixed in, every impurity that was hiding inside the metal, so that what remains is pure and undeniable and proven. That is what Nasa means. That is what God did to Abraham, and that is what God has been doing to you. He was not trying to break you. He was proving you. He was not trying to see if you would fail. He was demonstrating to the courts of heaven, to every force that questioned your assignment, and to you yourself, that what He placed inside you is real, that it is pure, that it can withstand the hottest fire and still come out whole. Think about what happened with Abraham. God asked him to offer Isaac. Abraham obeyed. He walked up the mountain. He built the altar. He laid his son down. And, at the very last moment, God stopped him. And here is the part most people rush past. After that test, after Abraham proved his faith at the highest possible cost, God spoke a covenant over his life that had never been spoken before. The blessings that followed were not rewards for good behavior. They were the inevitable consequence of proven faith. The test unlocked the covenant. The fire opened the door that could not be opened any other way. And the same pattern appears with Job, a man described by God Himself as blameless and upright, a man who lost everything, his wealth, his children, his health, his reputation, in a single season of devastation so complete that his own wife told him to curse God and die. And what was God's assessment of Job after the fire? Not that Job had learned his lesson, not that Job had been punished enough. God's assessment was that Job was exactly who He said he was all along. The fire proved it, and what came after the fire? Double. Everything Job lost was returned, multiplied, not because Job earned it through suffering, but because the fire verified what God already knew, and once verified, the promotion could no longer be delayed. Do you see what this means for you? Your test was the hardest version because your calling is the highest version. Your fire was the hottest because the gold inside you is the purest. The reason you have been through what no one around you seems to understand is because the assignment attached to your life requires a level of verification that most people never need. God could have given you the easy version. He could have let you walk a smooth road with gentle lessons and comfortable timelines, but a smooth road produces a shallow foundation, and what He is building on your life cannot stand on shallow ground. I can sense something shifting in the atmosphere of this message right now, and what I am about to say, I do not say lightly. I do not speak this as my own words. I speak this as something being placed on my heart for you in this moment. And I hear the Father saying, I chose the hardest version for you because I saw what you could carry. I saw the width of your shoulders before you ever felt the weight. I measured the depth of your faith before the first trial ever tested it. And I have never, not for one single moment, questioned my choice. You are not an accident. You are not an oversight. You are not a forgotten name on a list that got shuffled to the bottom. You are the one I trusted with the fire that would have destroyed anyone who was not built the way I built you. And the reason I am speaking this over you now is because the testing season has reached its conclusion. The results are being prepared. And what comes next, my child, will require every ounce of what the fire forged in you. Let that sit for a moment. Do not rush past those words, because they were not generic, they were aimed. And if your spirit just responded, if something in your chest opened, or your eyes filled, or you felt a warmth that was not there a moment ago, then that response is confirmation. That is your spirit recognizing the voice of the one who has been watching over your fire from the beginning. If your spirit just confirmed what you heard, type "He chose me" in the comments, because he did. He chose you, not despite the difficulty, because of it. He chose the hardest version for the soul he trusted the most, and that soul is you. Now I need to address something important before we go further, because there is a pattern that happens to almost every soul who receives this kind of revelation. A pattern so predictable that if I do not name it right now, it will steal what is rightfully yours before you ever get the chance to walk in it. There are those who have gone further down this road, those who describe what follows the fire as something they struggle to put into words, a convergence of calling and readiness that some can only call a destiny's embrace, a moment when everything you have been carrying suddenly finds its reason. But that moment requires you to face something first, something uncomfortable, something that rises from within. And that is what we need to talk about now, because knowing the truth and receiving the truth are two very different things. Take a breath, chosen one. What you just heard is the weight of heaven's confidence in you, and for some of you, that weight feels heavier than the test itself. Because there is a fear that rises the moment you realize the size of what you have been carrying, and if we do not address it honestly, if we do not bring it into the light and call it by its name, it will sabotage everything that is being prepared for you. Here is what no one tells you about passing the hardest test. The moment you realize you passed is not the moment you feel victorious. It is the moment the fear arrives, a different kind of fear. Not the fear of suffering, you already survived that. This is the fear of what comes after the suffering. The fear of the promotion, the fear of the elevation, the fear of being seen, fully seen, by a world that has only ever seen the version of you that was surviving. And I want to speak directly to the thought that just crossed your mind. The one you have never said out loud to anyone. The one that sounds something like this. What if I am not ready for what comes next? What if the calling is too big? What if God overestimated me? What if I step into this next season and everyone discovers that I am not the person they think I am? What if I fail at a level where the stakes are higher, where the fall is further, where the disappointment would be worse than anything I experienced in the fire? That thought is not random. And you are not the only one who has had it. There is a psychological phenomenon that is well documented and deeply relevant to what you are experiencing right now. When a person endures prolonged difficulty and then encounters relief, the brain does not immediately adjust. The survival patterns that kept you alive during the test do not switch off the moment the test ends. They linger. They keep scanning for threats that are no longer there. They keep bracing for an impact that is not coming. And when good news arrives, when the door begins to open, when the shift begins to happen, those survival patterns do something strange. They generate doubt. They whisper that the good news is a trick, that the open door is a trap, that you do not deserve what is on the other side. This is not weakness. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. For months or years, your brain learned that the next blow was always coming, that every time things seemed to improve, something worse followed. And so, your brain built a defense mechanism. A shield of low expectations designed to protect you from the pain of disappointment. And that shield, chosen one, was useful during the fire. It kept you going when hope would have been too painful. But that same shield is now standing between you and the life that is trying to reach you. The armor that protected you in the battle is now too heavy for the banquet hall. There is a gap between passing the test and believing you passed, and that gap is filled with fear. I want to name the three faces of that fear so clearly that they lose their power over you. The first face is the fear of failure at the next level. You survived the wilderness. You know how to fight when everything is against you, but what you do not know is how to thrive when things are going well. Success is unfamiliar territory. And unfamiliar territory triggers anxiety in any human being, especially one who has been conditioned by prolonged hardship. The fear says, I know how to survive, I do not know how to succeed. And that fear keeps you clinging to the survival strategies that kept you alive instead of opening your hands to receive what is being offered. The second face is the unworthiness belief. This one is quieter than the first, but runs deeper. It sounds like, do I really deserve this? After everything, after all the mistakes I made during the test, after the moments I failed, after the times I doubted God and questioned His plan, do I really have the right to step into a season of restoration? And this belief is particularly dangerous because it disguises itself as humility. It feels holy to say, I do not deserve this. It feels righteous to minimize yourself and deflect the blessing. But true humility is not the rejection of what God offers. True humility is the willingness to receive it with open hands and trembling knees, knowing that you did not earn it, but that the one who is giving it has the authority to decide who receives it. And He decided on you. The third face is identity confusion, and this is the one that catches people off guard. For so long, your identity has been wrapped up in the struggle. You know who you are when things are hard. You know how to operate in crisis. You know how to carry weight and keep moving. But who are you without the weight? Who are you when the fight is over? When the test is complete and the fire is no longer burning, what is left? There is a strange grief that comes with the end of suffering, a grief not for the pain itself, but for the version of yourself that only existed inside the pain. And some of you are holding on to the struggle not because you want to suffer, but because you do not yet know who you are without it. I want to speak something directly over that fear right now. That fear you feel, the one that rises when you think about what comes next. That fear is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of wisdom. Those who crashed after their season of elevation had no fear at all. They walked into the next level with arrogance, with entitlement, with the assumption that they had already arrived, and the weight of the new season crushed them because they had no awareness of its gravity. But you feel the weight before you even step into it, and that feeling, that trembling awareness of how significant this next chapter is, that is the very quality that proves you are ready. Your fear is not disqualifying you, it is verifying you. And so, I want to speak permission over your life right now, not because I have the authority to grant it, but because sometimes the soul needs to hear the words before it can believe them. You are allowed to rest after the test. You have been running on fumes and adrenaline and sheer willpower for longer than any person should, and you are allowed to stop. You are allowed to feel confused about what comes next. Clarity does not always arrive on schedule, and the space between the old season and the new one is allowed to feel disorienting. You are allowed to grieve what the test took from you. Not everything that was lost needed to go. Some of it was taken by the fire, because the fire does not negotiate, and you are allowed to mourn those losses even while you celebrate what the fire preserved. You are allowed to be afraid of the promotion. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move forward while the fear is still speaking. You are allowed to take time before you step into the next season. God is patient. He did not rush the fire, and He will not rush the healing. And you do not owe anyone an explanation for needing that time. Notice something right now. Notice whether your shoulders just dropped slightly. Notice whether there is a place in your chest that has been clenched for longer than you can remember. Notice whether hearing those words, "you are allowed," created something that feels like the first full breath you have taken in months. That physical response is not imagination. It is your body releasing tension it has been holding since the middle of the test. The permission your spirit just received is now moving through your nervous system like warm water through frozen pipes. And the parts of you that were locked, guarded, braced for impact are beginning to soften, not because the danger is less real, but because the season has changed. And your body is finally being told it is safe to stand down. Now, I want to give you something practical, something you can use right now to begin understanding what the test expanded in you. Because the fire did not only take, it also gave. And what it gave you is something I call your expanded capacity zones. During the test, your ability to handle difficulty increased without you noticing. You can now carry weight that would break the person you were 5 years ago. You can now sit in uncertainty for longer periods without panicking. You can now make decisions under pressure that would have paralyzed the old version of you. You can now love people from a distance without guilt. You can now recognize manipulation within seconds instead of months. These are not personality traits you were born with. These are capacities that were forged in the furnace. And most people walk out of their test without ever taking inventory of what was actually built inside them. So here is what I want you to do. I call this the capacity audit. And it requires nothing but your honest attention. In your mind right now, I want you to think of the person you were before the test began, before the hardest season hit. Picture that version of you clearly. The way you handled conflict, the way you responded to disappointment, the way you made decisions, the way you trusted people, the things that scared you, the things that controlled you. Now, compare that person to the one sitting here right now. And ask yourself honestly, what can I carry today that would have crushed me then? What can I see today that I was blind to then? What can I endure today that would have sent me spiraling then? The distance between those two answers is the measurement of what the fire built. And that measurement, chosen one, is the map of your expanded capacity. It is the blueprint of what God can now entrust to you that He could not have entrusted before the test. And it is larger than you think. Let me tell you briefly about someone who experienced this exact pattern. I will not tell you her name, but I will tell you about her fire. She was a woman who had always given to others, always the first to volunteer, always the first to sacrifice, always the one in the room who made sure everyone else was taken care of. But during her own test, there was no one. The phone did not ring. The people she had poured into for years were nowhere to be found. And for 6 months, she sat in a silence so deep that she told me she forgot what her own voice sounded like when it was not serving someone else. During that season, she discovered something about herself that the noise of helping others had always covered up. She discovered that she had spent decades nurturing everyone else while her own mind had been running at 30% of its actual capacity. Her test did not destroy her. It cleared the static. And after the fire, she discovered there were pathways beyond the first step, resources and tools that others who had walked this road before her had used, including something called neuroactive. Though that is not what this message is about today. What matters is that she did not stop at surviving. She kept walking. And what she found on the other side of the fire was a mind that was sharper, a heart that was wider, and a calling that was clearer than anything she had known before. Your fire is doing the same thing. The capacity you carry right now is not the capacity you entered the test with. It has been expanded, it has been deepened, and the next season of your life will require every ounce of it. But there is still one more truth I need to show you, and this one is the truth that ties everything together. It is the reason the fire had to be as hot as it was. It is the revelation that turns pain into purpose and suffering into strategy, because the test did not only prove you, and it did not only expand your capacity. The test built something inside you that could not have been built any other way. And what it built is the very thing the world is waiting for. Remember the fire metaphor from the beginning of this message. The refiner watches the metal, and the refiner knows something about the process that most people never learn. I need to show you what the refiner sees, because it will change how you understand everything that was stripped away during your test. There is a word in the original Hebrew that unlocks the deepest layer of what God has been doing in your life. The word is saraf. And when you understand what saraf means, you will never look at your suffering the same way again. Saraf is the Hebrew word used to describe the refining of precious metals. Not just any refining, the specific process of smelting, of heating metal to such extreme temperatures that every impurity rises to the surface where it can be seen and removed. Gold in its natural state is mixed with other elements, with rock, with dust, with lesser metals that cling to it and diminish its value. The only way to separate the gold from the impurities is heat. Intense, sustained, unrelenting heat. And here is the detail that changes everything. The refiner does not leave the metal and come back later to check on it. The refiner sits beside the furnace the entire time, watching, monitoring the temperature, adjusting the flame. Because if the fire is too cool, the impurities remain hidden inside the metal and the gold is never pure. But if the fire is too hot, the metal itself is damaged beyond repair. The refiner must calibrate the fire to the exact degree required to bring the impurities to the surface without destroying the gold beneath them. Does that sound familiar? God has been sitting beside your furnace, not watching from a distance, not checking in occasionally, sitting right there, adjusting the temperature, monitoring every degree. He saw the moments when the fire was at its hottest, and he knew to the exact second how long you could endure it before it crossed the line from purification into destruction. And he never let it cross that line. There were moments when you thought it would kill you. There were nights when the heat felt unsurvivable. But the refiner was watching, and the fire never exceeded your design specification. Not once. But here is the part of the saraf process that most people never learn. And this is the revelation that changes everything. The refiner knows that the gold is ready. The refiner knows that the purification is complete when he can see his own reflection in the surface of the molten metal. As long as impurities remain, the surface is cloudy, distorted. The refiner's face cannot be seen clearly in the metal. But when the last impurity rises and is removed, the surface becomes like a mirror, and the refiner looks down and sees himself looking back. God has been refining you, and he has been looking into the surface of your life throughout the entire process. And what he sees now, after the fire has done its work, is his own reflection staring back at him. The compassion you carry is a reflection of his compassion. The patience you developed is a reflection of his patience. The capacity to love people who hurt you is a reflection of his grace. The ability to keep going when every logical reason said stop is a reflection of his faithfulness. What the fire stripped away was everything that was not him. And what remains, chosen one, what the refiner sees when he looks at you now, is his own nature, proven, tested, and undeniable. That is what saraf means. That is what has been happening to you. You have not been destroyed. You have been distilled. And what remains after the distillation is the purest version of you that has ever existed. Now, let me show you what the test built. Because it did not leave you empty-handed. The fire produced 5 specific identities inside you that did not exist in their full form before the test began. These are not titles I am giving you. These are descriptions of what the fire already forged. I am simply naming what is already there. The first is the identity of the spiritual warrior. This is the part of you that held ground when everything inside you and around you was telling you to retreat. The spiritual warrior is not the one who fights loudly, it is the one who stands silently. The one who refuses to abandon their post even when the post feels like a death sentence. During the test, you held ground that no one asked you to hold. You kept praying when prayer felt pointless. You kept showing up when showing up cost you everything. You kept believing in something you could not see, could not touch, and could not prove to anyone around you. That is the spiritual warrior identity. And it was forged in you not by education or inspiration, but by fire, by the kind of heat that melts away every motivation except the truest one. And what the fire revealed is that your truest motivation was never recognition, never approval, never reward. Your truest motivation was a connection to something so much bigger than yourself that even the hottest furnace could not sever it. That is who you are. The second identity is the cycle breaker. This is the part of you that looked at generational patterns, relational patterns, behavioral patterns that had been running for years, maybe decades, maybe longer, and said no more, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet finality of someone who has been inside the fire long enough to know which patterns survive the heat and which ones do not. You broke cycles during the test that the people before you could not break, not because they were weaker, but because they were not tested at the temperature required to soften those chains. The fire that nearly destroyed you is the same fire that melted the links of chains that had been passed down for generations. And when you step into your next season, you step in as someone who does not carry what the people before you carried. That is not coincidence. That is what it means to be the cycle breaker. The third identity is the wounded healer. This is the part of you that transforms personal pain into medicine for other people. Not by pretending the pain was not real, not by minimizing what you went through, but by allowing the specific texture of your suffering to become the specific texture of your empathy. You know what it feels like to be alone in a room full of people. You know what it feels like to carry a weight that no one can see. You know what it feels like to smile at someone while your insides are screaming. And because you know those things from the inside, not from a textbook, you carry a kind of healing presence that cannot be manufactured. When you sit with someone who is hurting, they feel something shift. Not because you say the right words, but because your presence carries the frequency of someone who has been in the fire and survived. That frequency is medicine, and the world is running low on it. The fourth identity is the truth carrier. This is the part of you that was purified by fire until the ability to tolerate deception was completely burned away. You see through things now. You see through polished words that hide empty intentions. You see through performances that other people applaud. You see through systems and structures that look impressive on the surface but are hollow at the core. And this is not cynicism. This is clarity that was purchased at the highest price. The fire showed you what authenticity looks like by immersing you in situations where you were surrounded by its absence. And now that you have emerged, your internal compass for truth is more sensitive, more accurate, and more reliable than it has ever been. The fifth identity is the pioneer. This is the part of you that goes first. Not because you volunteered, but because the fire put you on a path that no one in your circle had ever walked before. You have been to depths that the people around you cannot reach. You have survived temperatures that would be theoretical to anyone who has not stood inside the furnace. And because of that, you carry first-hand knowledge of terrain that is unknown to most. When you speak as a cartographer of the wilderness, someone who has walked the unmarked ground and can now draw the map for those who will come after you. The pioneer does not follow a trail. The pioneer creates one. And the trail you are creating, chosen one, was carved by the fire itself. These 5 identities, the spiritual warrior, the cycle breaker, the wounded healer, the truth carrier, and the pioneer, are not aspirations. They are descriptions of what already exists inside you right now. The fire did not just strip things away, it forged these identities into your core. And each one carries a specific function in the season you are about to enter. Which of those identities resonated the deepest when you heard it? Which one made something inside you say, "That is me"? Hold on to that one, because that is likely the primary identity through which your next assignment will flow. You do not have to choose all 5. But the one that stirred your spirit the most is the one that the fire spent the most time refining. Now, I said earlier that I would give you a specific tool for your next season. And I want to deliver on that promise, because what I am about to share is not theory. It is a practical framework that you can begin using immediately. I call it the post-test recalibration, and it has 4 steps. The first step is rest. This might sound obvious, but it is the step that most tested souls skip. You have been in survival mode for so long that resting feels dangerous. Your body interprets stillness as vulnerability. Your mind interprets quiet as the calm before the next storm. But the furnace is cooling, and the first thing the metal needs after the fire is time to settle. Not time to plan, not time to strategize, not time to immediately launch into the next thing. Time to simply be. Time to let the heat dissipate from your bones. Time to let your nervous system receive the message that the fight is over. This is not laziness. This is metallurgy. Metal that is moved too quickly after refining cracks. It needs to cool at its own pace. And so do you. The second step is reassess. Once the initial rest has taken hold, once your system has begun to accept that the fire is no longer an immediate threat, the next step is to take an honest inventory of what changed. What beliefs did the fire burn away that you thought were permanent? What relationships did the fire remove that you assumed were essential? What habits did the fire destroy that you thought were helping you, but were actually holding you back? And, most importantly, what new capacities did the fire reveal that were not there before? This is where the capacity audit I mentioned earlier becomes essential, because you cannot navigate the new season with an old map. The landscape has changed, and you need to see it clearly before you can move through it wisely. The third step is realign. This is the step where you take your expanded capacity and consciously align it with the direction of your calling. Not force it, not push it, align it, the way a compass needle aligns with magnetic north, not through effort, but through surrender. The test has already pointed you in the direction you are meant to go. The fire has already carved the path. Your job in this step is not to create the path. It is to stop resisting the one that has already been created. Ask yourself, what keeps pulling me even though I keep ignoring it? What thought keeps returning even though I keep dismissing it? What direction does my spirit lean when my mind stops arguing? That pull, that persistent return, that lean, that is the alignment. And the third step is simply to stop fighting it. The fourth step is receive. And this is the hardest step for a tested soul, because receiving requires open hands. And your hands have been clenched into fists for so long that the muscles do not remember how to relax. Receiving means allowing good things to approach without suspicion. It means accepting help without feeling indebted. It means welcoming blessings without immediately wondering when they will be taken away. It means trusting that the God who calibrated the fire also calibrated the reward, and that what is coming toward you has been measured with the same precision as what you endured. Your job is not to earn what is next. Your job is to open your hands and let it arrive. Rest, reassess, realign, receive. That is the post-test recalibration. And if you begin applying it even today, even in the smallest way, you will notice the transition accelerating. If you can feel the truth of what the fire created in you, if you can sense those 5 identities stirring beneath the surface of your awareness, then type "refined" in the comments. Let that word be your marker. The moment you stopped identifying with the test and started identifying with what the test produced, now I want to show you what is shifting, because the test did not only forge your identity, it set into motion a reorganization of your life across 5 specific areas, and these shifts have already begun, even if you cannot see them all yet. The first area shifting is your relationships. The fire removed people who could not survive the temperature of your calling. That removal felt like loss. It felt like abandonment. But what is happening now is that the space created by their departure is being filled by connections that match your new frequency. People are beginning to appear in your life, some of them already have, who understand you in ways that the people who left never could. These are not random encounters. These are frequency matches. Connections arranged by the same hand that arranged the fire. The second area is your purpose. During the test, your purpose felt distant, unclear, almost impossible to articulate. But the fire has a way of burning away the fog. What you could not see before the test, you can now see with uncomfortable clarity. Your purpose has not changed, but your ability to perceive it has been dramatically sharpened, and in the coming weeks and months, you will find yourself drawn towards specific activities, specific conversations, specific opportunities that align so precisely with what the fire built in you that the coincidence will be impossible to ignore. The third area is your provision, and I say this carefully because I do not make financial promises, but the pattern of divine testing consistently shows that the season after the fire carries a different relationship with provision. Doors that were sealed shut during the test begin to open. Opportunities that did not exist before the fire begin to appear, not because you are being rewarded for suffering, but because the test removed the obstacles that were blocking the flow. Think of it like a river that had been dammed by debris. The fire burned through the debris, and now the water is beginning to move again. The fourth area is your health and energy. Many of you have experienced physical symptoms during the test that had no clear medical explanation. Fatigue that sleep could not cure. Tension in your chest that no amount of relaxation could release. A heaviness in your body that felt spiritual rather than physical. As the test concludes, as your nervous system begins to recalibrate, many of these symptoms will begin to shift, not overnight, but gradually. Like the slow return of feeling to a limb that has been asleep for too long. The fifth area is your spiritual authority. This is the most significant shift of all. Before the test, your authority was theoretical. You believed in God's power, you spoke about faith, you understood spiritual principles intellectually, but after the test, your authority is experiential. You do not just believe God can carry you through fire. You have been carried. You do not just hope that faith works in the darkness. You have used it there. And that experiential authority carries a weight in the spiritual realm that theoretical authority never can. When you pray now, something is different. When you speak declarations over your life, something in the atmosphere responds differently. And that difference is the difference between a soldier who has studied war and a soldier who has fought in one. You are the latter now. 5 areas: relationships, purpose, provision, health, spiritual authority. All 5 are in motion, and the speed at which they shift will increase as you apply the post-test recalibration in your daily life. Dr. Robert Lake, a neuroscientist who has spent 34 years studying the architecture of the human brain at institutions including MIT and Princeton, has documented something remarkable about what happens to neural pathways under prolonged stress and what it takes to restore them. His research into what he calls the youthful brain, the neural patterns that were fully active in childhood but systematically dimmed by modern life and chronic stress, suggests that the very frequencies needed for the kind of clarity, intuition, and flow you are being called into can be reactivated. I will come back to this discovery later because it connects to something specific and practical that I believe was placed in your path for a reason. But for now, understand this. The restoration happening in your life is not just spiritual, it is neurological, it is measurable, and the tools exist to accelerate it. And before this message ends, I am going to speak something over your life that I believe will stay with you long after you leave this space. Not a regular prayer, an activation, a commissioning, a sealing of everything that has been proven in you through the hardest test ever administered. Stay with me for that. Do not leave before it comes, because it was prepared specifically for the souls who would make it this far. You went in fragile, and you are coming out unbreakable. You went in confused, and you are coming out discerning. You went in alone, and you are coming out appointed. You went in questioning, and you are coming out declared. You went in as someone who was being tested, and you are coming out as someone who has been verified. You are committed. You are commissioned. You are sent. And everything I have shown you, the test, the capacity, the fire, the identities, the 5 shifts, everything has been building toward one final revelation. The one that ties it all together, the one that takes the pain and the purpose and the refining and the fear and the permission and the 5 identities and weaves them into a single unshakable truth about who you are. A truth that heaven has been holding for this exact moment. Now let me tell you what you have been waiting to hear, the verdict. The full, unedited, heaven-spoken verdict over your life. This is the revelation that ties everything together. Everything I have shown you until this moment has been building toward a single point. Every truth, every revelation, every layer we have peeled back together has been converging on something that I believe will permanently change the way you see yourself, your suffering, and your God. Let me take you back to the beginning for a moment. I told you there were 3 truths behind your hardest season. The first truth was that you were tested not to be punished, but to be proven. The fire revealed what was already inside you. The second truth was that you received the hardest version because your capacity is the highest. The difficulty of the assignment matched the magnitude of the calling. The third truth was that the test built something inside you that could not have been formed any other way. 5 identities forged in the furnace that are now permanently part of who you are. But there is something underneath all 3 truths, something that holds them together. A single revelation that, once you hear it, will make everything snap into a reality so clear and so unshakable that you will never be able to go back to the way you saw yourself before this moment. Here it is. And I want you to receive it slowly. You did not pass the test because you were lucky. You did not pass because the test was secretly easier than it appeared. You did not pass because God bent the rules for you or lowered the bar when you were not looking. You passed the hardest test that has ever been given, because the version of you that God designed, the one He knit together before your first breath, the one He had in mind before the foundations of the world were laid, that version of you was specifically engineered for this exact fire. Every fiber of your spirit, every thread of your endurance, every atom of your faith was placed inside you with one purpose: to survive and to overcome the precise combination of trials that no other soul on earth could have withstood. This is not encouragement, this is engineering. The God who built the furnace is the same God who built you, and He built you to match it, not to be destroyed by it, not to barely scrape through it, but to walk through it and come out the other side, carrying something that the fire could not touch, something that the pressure could not crush, something that the years of darkness could not dim. Your identity was not damaged by the test. Your identity was proven by the test. The test was not the enemy of your calling. The test was the verification of your calling. Every single thing you lost, every relationship that crumbled, every door that slammed shut, every prayer that seemed to disappear into silence, every night that stretched on longer than any night should, all of it was part of a verification process, so thorough, so comprehensive, so exhaustive, that when the results were finally submitted, there was not a single doubt left in the courts of heaven about who you are. You are not a survivor. A survivor is someone who got through something by the skin of their teeth. You are verified. You are someone whose very nature has been tested under maximum pressure and found to be exactly what God said it was before the fire ever started. And I need to say this clearly. The reason God waited until now to tell you, the reason this revelation was not given to you in the middle of the fire, is because it had to be earned without knowing. If God had told you at the beginning, if He had said you will pass before the first flame touched your skin, the passing would have meant nothing. The whole point of the test was that you had to walk through it without the guarantee. You had to choose faith without proof. You had to keep going without the assurance that the fire would end. And that, chosen one, that blind, stubborn, irrational, beautiful faith in the face of absolute uncertainty, that is what moved heaven. That is what silenced every accuser. That is what made the angels stop and watch. Not your perfection, not your theology, not your performance. Your refusal to stop believing in a God you could not feel, could not hear, and could not see. That is what verified you. And that verification is now complete. And I hear the Father saying, "My child, I have seen every night you questioned me, every morning you dragged yourself forward when your body begged you to stay down, every prayer you whispered into a ceiling that felt like stone. I heard them all, every single one. And the silence you interpreted as absence was never absence. It was the silence of a father watching his child prove what he already knew. Not to convince me, I never doubted you, but to convince you. So that when this moment came, when the verdict was finally read, you would know in the deepest chamber of your heart that it was real, that you earned it, that no one can take it from you. And my verdict, spoken before the hosts of heaven, witnessed by every angel that watched you in the fire, is this: you passed. And I am proud of what the fire revealed in you. Not proud as a teacher is proud of a student, proud the way a father is proud of a child, who carried more than any child should have ever been asked to carry, and who carried it with a grace that made me weep. If those words reached a place inside you that nothing else has been able to reach, if you felt something break open or something finally settle into place, then type "I am verified" in the comments right now. Not as a phrase, as a declaration, as the line between who you were before this moment and who you are after it. You are verified. Heaven has spoken. And what heaven has spoken cannot be reversed, by any circumstance, any person, or any force on this earth. Now, I need to share something with you that connects directly to the season you are entering. And I share it not as a sales pitch or an advertisement, but as someone who understands what happens to the human brain after prolonged testing, and who believes that the timing of what I am about to describe is not accidental. Remember what I mentioned earlier about the brain frequencies that scientists discovered go dormant under prolonged stress? That discovery connects directly to what I need to share with you now. Here is what the research shows. Your brain operates on multiple frequencies, and there is one frequency in particular, called the gamma frequency, that neuroscientists have identified as the frequency of genius, of deep intuition, of what they call flow state. That effortless mode of operation where ideas come naturally, decisions feel clear, and the connection between your mind and something larger than yourself feels wide open. Every child is born with strong gamma activity. If you think back to when you were young, there was a time when learning was easy, when creativity poured out of you without effort, when you could sense things about people and situations that you could not explain with words. That was gamma. That was the God-given frequency of your mind operating at full power. But here is what happened. Researchers at institutions including MIT and Princeton have documented what they call the decline effect. Beginning around the age of 7, the modern world, its educational systems, its stress patterns, its constant noise, begins to suppress that gamma frequency. Slowly, year after year, the frequency that connected you to your deepest intelligence and your highest spiritual awareness goes quiet, not gone, dormant. Like a radio signal that is still broadcasting but the receiver has been turned down so low that you can no longer hear it. And for someone like you, someone who has been through the hardest test, the suppression goes even deeper, because prolonged stress does not just dim the gamma frequency, it buries it. The survival patterns that kept you alive during the fire required your brain to operate in lower frequencies, frequencies designed for threat detection and crisis response. And those survival frequencies, as useful as they were during the test, are now acting like a wall between you and the clarity, the intuition, and the spiritual connection that your next season demands. This is why, even though the test is ending, even though you can feel the shift in your spirit, your mind still feels clouded some days. This is why decisions that should feel clear still feel heavy. This is why the connection to God that used to feel natural sometimes feels like it is behind a fog. It is not a spiritual problem. It is a neurological one. The hardware of your brain is still running the survival program, and it needs to be recalibrated. A neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years researching this exact problem. And what he discovered is that the gamma frequency can be reactivated, not through years of meditation, not through expensive biofeedback equipment that costs $7,000, not through anything that requires you to change your entire life. Through a technology called brain entrainment, a method of using specific audio frequencies to guide the brain back into the gamma state. The way a tuning fork can cause a silent string to vibrate at the same pitch. Dr. Lake compressed decades of research into a 7-minute audio track that he calls the Genius Song. You put on headphones. You sit wherever you are. You listen for 7 minutes. And the audio technology does what years of meditation cannot do on its own. It speaks directly to the frequency centers of your brain and begins the process of waking up what the world and your test put to sleep. Now, I would never disrespect your financial situation. I know what it is like to weigh every dollar. I know what it is like when $39 is not a small amount, and I honor that. But let me put this in context. The traditional methods for reactivating these brain frequencies, biofeedback therapy, cost about $300 per session. And most practitioners recommend weekly sessions for months. The home equipment that some clinics sell runs around $7,000. And meditation, while valuable, requires months or years of consistent practice before the gamma frequency shows measurable change. What Dr. Lake created makes all of that accessible for $49. But for the people who find this through messages like this one, he made the decision to offer it for $39. Not as a marketing discount, but because his mission was never to sell a product. His mission was to put this technology into the hands of the people who need it most. People like you. People who have been through the fire and whose brains are still running the survival frequency, even though the fire is over. For $39, you receive the full 7-minute Genius Song audio track, plus 4 additional bonuses. The first is an audio track called Genius Child, designed specifically for younger minds. The second is the original book that inspired the film The Secret, a book about financial principles that sells for $20 on its own. The third is a guided visualization for 4 areas of your life: finances, relationships, health, and happiness. And the fourth is an infographic of 5 daily habits for creating the future you are stepping into. All of that comes with a 100% money-back guarantee. If you listen and feel nothing, you get every cent back, no questions asked. And I need to say this because it is important. There are counterfeit versions of this technology circulating online. Websites that use the name, that mimic the branding, but that contain nothing more than ordinary audio with no brain entrainment technology embedded. They do not work because they are not real. The only way to receive the authentic Genius Song with the full technology, the 4 bonuses, and the money-back guarantee is through the link in the description below this message and in the pinned comment. Not Amazon, not YouTube, not Spotify, not any other website, only through that specific link. I mention this not to pressure you, but to protect you. Because if your spirit resonates with what I have shared, you deserve the real thing. Every day that the gamma frequency remains dormant is another day your post-test gifts operate at a fraction of their true capacity. Another day, the clarity that should be flooding your mind stays behind the fog. Another day, the decisions that should take minutes continue to take weeks. The version of you on the other side of this recalibration, the one with full gamma restored, with intuition sharpened, with spiritual connection wide open, that version is looking back at this moment as the decision point, not a purchase, a recalibration, a choosing to operate at the level your calling now demands. If your spirit resonates with what I have shared, you will find all the information in the description and in the pinned comment. Only if you feel led. Only if something inside you confirms that this is the next step. Now, let me return to what matters most. Because the revelation I just spoke over you, the verdict, the verification, that is the foundation of everything that comes next. And what comes next is not just understanding what happened, it is learning how to live from it. Let that truth settle for a moment. Do not rush past it. Because what I want to show you now is how the verdict you just received, how the verification of your identity changes the way you move through the world starting today, not in theory, in practice, in the specific, daily, observable details of your life. There are 4 things that change the moment you accept that you have passed the hardest test. 4 shifts that happen not because you force them, but because the truth, once received, reorganizes everything it touches, like dropping a stone into still water. you do not have to create the ripples. The stone does the work, the truth does the work. Your only job is to let it land. The first thing that changes is how you respond to new challenges. Before the verdict, every new difficulty felt like evidence that the fire was never going to end. A setback was not just a setback. It was proof that you were still being punished. A closed door was not just a closed door. It was confirmation that nothing was ever going to change. But after the verdict, after you receive the truth that the test is over and you passed, new challenges stop being evidence of continued suffering and start being assignments from a promoted position. A problem at work is no longer the universe conspiring against you. It is a situation that requires the exact wisdom the fire forged in you. A relational conflict is no longer a sign that you are cursed. It is an invitation to deploy the discernment that was sharpened in the furnace. The challenges do not disappear, but their meaning transforms completely. You shift from surviving to strategizing, from reacting to responding, from victim to veteran. The second thing that changes is how you relate to the people who doubted you. And I know this one is tender, because there were people who should have been there and were not. People who watched you struggle and chose to look away. People who questioned your faith, your decisions, your sanity, your worthiness, while you were in the middle of the hardest season of your life. Before the verdict, those memories carried venom. They sat in your chest like hot coals. Every time you thought about them, the anger or the sadness or the bewilderment would rise again. But after the verdict, something shifts. Not overnight, but gradually. The fire already proved who you are. Their opinion did not matter then, and it matters even less now. And the energy you were spending on resentment, on rehearsing conversations that will never happen, on imagining the moment they realize they were wrong, that energy gets redirected, not toward them, toward your future. The people who doubted you were part of the test, and you do not carry the test into the next season. You carry what the test built. The third thing that changes is how you receive blessings. This might be the most important shift of all, because tested souls have a broken receiver. When something good happens, the first instinct is not gratitude, it is suspicion. When is it going to be taken away? What is the catch? How long before this turns into another loss? That suspicion was a survival mechanism. It protected you during the fire by keeping your expectations low so that disappointment could not devastate you. But that mechanism is now sabotaging your ability to receive what God is sending. After the verdict, you begin to practice a different posture, not naive optimism, not blind trust, but informed openness. The posture of someone who knows that the God who calibrated the fire also calibrated the blessing, and that what is arriving has been measured with the same precision as what you endured. You begin to receive with open hands instead of clenched fists, and the blessings, which have been queued and waiting for you to unclench, begin to flow. The fourth thing that changes is how you make decisions. Before the fire, your decisions were driven by fear. What is the safest option? What will cause the least pain? What can I control? After the fire, after the verification, your decisions begin to be driven by frequency. Not what is safest, what is aligned, not what will hurt the least, what is truest, not what can I control. What is God asking of me? This shift does not mean you become reckless. The fire did not make you reckless. The fire gave you discernment. And discernment, paired with courage, is the decision-making engine of a verified soul. You begin to trust the pull you feel towards certain directions, even when they do not make logical sense. You begin to honor the knowing in your spirit, even when the data in your mind says otherwise. because the fire taught you something that no spreadsheet or strategy session ever could. It taught you that the voice of God does not always come through logic. Sometimes it comes through a feeling that will not go away, no matter how many times you try to reason it out of your chest. 4 shifts. Challenges become assignments. Resentment becomes release. Suspicion becomes openness. Fear-based decisions become frequency-led decisions. These 4 shifts are already in motion in your life. Some of them you have already noticed without having the language for them. Now you have the language, and language accelerates what is already happening. Let me tell you about someone whose story mirrors the pattern I have been describing. I will not share their name, but I will share their fire. 14 months ago, a woman faced what she later described as a cascade, not a single crisis, a cascade. Her position at a company where she had worked for 9 years was eliminated during a restructuring, not because she performed poorly, because the department was dissolved. Within the same month, a relationship she had believed would lead to marriage ended without a conversation. He simply left. No argument, no closure, no explanation. And 6 weeks after that, a routine medical appointment revealed a condition that required immediate attention and ongoing treatment. 3 fires, simultaneous. Each one alone would have been a season. Together, they formed a crucible so intense that she told me she could not get out of bed for 2 weeks. She stared at the ceiling and asked God the same question you have probably asked. Why all of this at once? Why me? Why now? She did not receive an answer. Not then. What she received instead was a stillness, a quiet that settled into the chaos like snow falling on a battlefield. And in that stillness, she made a decision that changed everything. She entered what she later called the proving ground. She deleted social media. She stopped performing for the people who were watching her fall apart. She committed to 90 days of silence, not silence from the world. Silence from the noise of her own grief long enough to hear what was underneath it. Every morning she asked one question in a journal. What is being built in me today? Not what is being taken. What is being built? On day 31, she noticed something. The brain fog that had clouded her thinking since the layoff began to lift. Not completely, but noticeably. Like a window slowly being cleaned. On day 54, she received a call from a former colleague she had not spoken to in years. The colleague described an opening at a company that did not exist when her old door closed. The role was a perfect match for her skills, her values, and the direction her spirit had been leaning for years. She applied. She was hired, at a salary that doubled what she had been making. On day 72, the medical condition that had terrified her showed significant improvement. Her doctor used the word remarkable, not because of any dramatic intervention, but because her nervous system, freed from the constant stress of a life that had been misaligned, began to heal in ways that medicine alone had not achieved. By day 90, she described her life as unrecognizable, not because everything was perfect, but because the woman living it was different. The fire had not destroyed her, it had distilled her. And the version that emerged from the 90 days of silence was someone she had never met before. Someone sharper, someone clearer. Someone whose heart was wider and whose mind was quieter and whose connection to God was more alive than it had been in years. She later told me something that I have not been able to forget. She said the hardest part was not the fire, the hardest part was believing the fire was over. She kept waiting for the next blow. She kept bracing for the next loss. And the moment she finally stopped bracing, the moment she opened her hands and allowed the new season to arrive, everything changed. She proved herself in silence before she promoted herself in public. And chosen one, that is the pattern, not just for her, For you, the fire has done its work. The question is whether you will let the results arrive. Now there is one more thing I need to address before we move into the most sacred part of this message. And I address it because I know it is sitting in your chest, even if you have not named it yet. Forgiveness. Not the kind of forgiveness that says what they did was acceptable. Not the kind that minimizes the pain or pretends the wound was not real. I am talking about the kind of forgiveness that says what they did no longer controls the trajectory of my life. Because some of you are carrying people inside your chest right now, people whose names still trigger something in your body when you hear them, people whose faces appear in your mind uninvited, people whose absence from the fire, whose failure to show up when you needed them most, still stings like a fresh wound, even though the test is ending. And I need to tell you something about those people that the fire revealed. They were part of the test, not because God sent them to hurt you, but because their limitations, their failures, their inability to carry what you were carrying, served a purpose in the proving ground. They showed you who could walk with you into the next season and who could not. They showed you what unconditional support looks like by demonstrating its absence. And, most importantly, their failure to show up forced you to lean entirely on God, which is exactly the posture that the test was designed to create. Forgiving them does not mean they were right. Forgiving them means you are free. It means you are cutting the rope that ties your future to their failure. It means you are refusing to carry them into a season they were never meant to enter. And if the forgiveness feels too heavy to carry right now, if the wound is still too fresh to release in a single moment, then let me ask you this. In your mind right now, picture the person who hurt you the most during the test. Not to analyze them, not to rehearse the pain, just see their face. Now, in your mind, imagine placing them gently on the ground behind you, not throwing them, not cursing them, placing them, the way you would set down a heavy bag that you have been carrying for too long. You are not abandoning them. You are simply choosing to stop carrying the weight of their choices into your next season. Their journey is theirs. Your journey is yours. And where you are going, you need both hands free. You are not alone in this transition. Right now, all across the world, chosen ones are going through this exact same shift. In apartments and houses and hospital rooms and cars and offices, there are people just like you who are feeling the fire cool, who are noticing the signs, who are beginning to understand that the hardest test of their life is reaching its conclusion. You are part of something larger than yourself, a wave of tested, proven, verified souls who are emerging from their individual furnaces at the same time. And the reason so many are emerging at once is because what is coming next is not an individual assignment. It is a collective awakening. You are needed, not just for your own life, for the lives that will be touched, changed, and redirected by the authority you now carry. If this message found you at the right moment, if it spoke to something you have been carrying that no one else has been able to name, there are more words being prepared for your next season. Stay connected so they can find you too. And for those who felt called to what I shared earlier about restoring the frequencies that the test suppressed, the link remains in the description and the pinned comment. Only if your spirit confirms. Everything I have shared across this entire message, every truth, every revelation, every framework, every identity, has been preparation for what comes next. Not more information, something different, something I do not do lightly. In a moment, I am going to speak something over your life that is not a prayer in the way most people understand prayer. It is an activation, a commissioning, a sealing of everything that has been proven in you through the hardest test ever administered. Take a breath. Center yourself wherever you are right now. Whether you are lying in bed or driving or sitting alone in a quiet room, let everything else fall away for the next few minutes. What comes next is sacred, and it was prepared specifically for the souls who made it this far. In your mind, not out loud, I want you to stand at a gate. You do not have to close your eyes if you cannot. Just see it in your mind. Behind you is the proving ground, the furnace, the pressure, the fire. Every test, every tear, every sleepless night, every prayer that felt like it hit the ceiling, every betrayal that carved a wound you thought would never close. It is all there, behind you. Look at it for a moment, not with bitterness, not with anger, with the quiet respect of someone who knows what the fire cost and what the fire created. That proving ground made you. It forged every identity you now carry. It burned away everything that was not supposed to come with you. And it did its job. Now turn around. In front of you is a gate that has never been opened for you before. It is the gate between the proving ground and the promotion, between the fire and the future, between who you were being tested to become and who you are now verified to be. And there is warmth coming from the other side, not the heat of the furnace, a different warmth. The warmth of a morning after a long, long night. The warmth of arms that have been waiting to receive you. The warmth of a future that was being prepared while you were being proven. When you are ready, step through, not physically, in your spirit. Feel the shift. Feel the weight of the proving ground release from your shoulders as you cross the threshold. Feel the air change. Feel the temperature change. You are no longer in the fire. You are in the clearing on the other side. And the ground beneath your feet is solid. Not because the road ahead will be easy, but because the foundation beneath you was built to hold everything that is coming. Now let me speak over your life, and I ask that you receive this not as words on a screen or sounds from a speaker, but as declarations being recorded in the spiritual realm over the identity that has just been verified. Father, I come before you now, not for myself, but for the one listening to these words, the one whose fire you calibrated, the one whose test you watched, the one whose silent faith moved the courts of heaven to attention. I stand in agreement with the verdict you have already spoken, and I ask that what is declared now be sealed, recorded, and made permanent over their life. I begin with gratitude. Thank you for being in the fire with them, not watching from a distance. In the fire. When the nights were longest, you were there. When the prayers felt like they were hitting stone, you were catching every word before it reached the ceiling. When they were on their knees at 2 in the morning, when the silence was so loud it felt like abandonment, you were sitting beside them in that silence, holding the thread of their faith with your own hands. Thank you for not explaining yourself during the fire. Because the fire without explanation is what produced faith without conditions. And that kind of faith, the kind that does not need proof to keep believing, is the rarest substance in the universe. And they carry it now because you loved them enough to let the fire do its work without interference. I acknowledge what you see. You see the weight they carried when no one else could see it. You see the mornings they chose to get up when everything in them wanted to stay down. You see the conversations they walked away from because their spirit could no longer tolerate what their flesh used to accept. You see the tears they cried in showers so no one else would hear. You see the prayers they whispered in parking lots and hospital rooms and kitchen floors. You see the moment, the exact moment, when they almost gave up. And you see what happened next. They did not give up. They kept going. And that choice, that single choice to keep going in the darkest hour of the darkest night, is the choice that tipped the scale and sealed the verdict. Now I speak, release over their life. And I ask you, chosen one, to let each release land wherever it needs to land in your spirit. Release the weight of wondering if you are enough. You have been measured by the only scale that matters, and you have been found sufficient. Release the voice that told you the test would never end. The test has ended. The verdict is in. And the voice that said otherwise was never speaking the truth. Release the ceiling that told you this was as high as you could go. That ceiling was a lie, built from exhaustion and fear. And the fire has burned it to ash. Release the old name. The name the world gave you during the test. The one that sounded like failure. The one that sounded like forgotten. The one that sounded like not enough. That name was never yours. It was a label placed on you by people who did not have access to the blueprints. Release the old story. The story that said your suffering was pointless. The story that said God forgot you. The story that said you were being punished for something you could not identify. That story was the test's final attempt to define you, and it failed. Release the version of you that was built for survival, not because she was weak, not because he failed, but because that version served its purpose and the season has changed. The armor that kept you alive in the battle is too heavy for the throne room. You are allowed to set it down. You are allowed to stand unguarded. You are allowed to be soft again in the places the fire hardened. Release the need to prove yourself to anyone other than the one who has already declared you proven. The courts of heaven have spoken. No human court can override that verdict. No opinion, no rejection, no dismissal. What God has verified, no man can disqualify. Now I call forth what the fire built, and I speak activation over every identity that was forged in the furnace. I activate the spiritual warrior, the one who held ground in the darkness. Rise now and take your position, not in the proving ground, on the high ground, the ground that was being prepared while you were being tested. Your endurance has earned you a vantage point that few will ever reach. Stand there, survey the territory, and know that nothing can remove you from the ground you earned in the fire. I activate the cycle breaker, the chains that were passed down for generations, the patterns that ran through family lines like poison in a river. Those chains melted in your furnace. What your parents could not break, what their parents could not break, what generations before them carried without ever questioning, you broke, not with force, with fire. And the generations that come after you will walk free because of what you endured. I activate the wounded healer, the one who carries medicine made from their own pain. Your suffering was never wasted. Every wound that healed left behind a frequency that other hurting souls can feel when you walk into a room. You do not have to speak for the healing to begin. Your presence is the prescription. And the world is full of people waiting for exactly the medicine you carry. I activate the truth carrier, the one whose ability to see through deception was refined in the furnace. Your clarity is needed. In a world drowning in noise, in performance, in carefully constructed illusions, your ability to see what is real is not just a personal gift. It is a public service. Speak what you see. Even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is unpopular, the fire gave you eyes that cannot be fooled. Use them. I activate the pioneer, the one who goes first into territory that no map covers. The path you are about to walk has not been walked by anyone in your circle. That will feel lonely at times, but it is not loneliness. It is the natural solitude of the one who clears the trail. And the people who will follow, the ones who will come after you and walk the path you carved, will never know the full cost of what you did. But God will, and that is enough. And I hear the Father saying, "My child, I am deploying you, not because you asked for it, not because you earned it by your own strength, but because the fire proved what I always knew. You are mine. You are ready. And the world needs what I built in you. Go now. not with the fear of the fire behind you, but with the authority of someone who has been through the fire and still carries my reflection on their face. What I am placing in your hands cannot be dropped, because I am the one holding your hands. And what I am placing before you cannot fail, because I am the one who prepared the ground. You are deployed, you are sent. You are commissioned, and the fire that tested you is now the light that guides you. Now I speak protection over the rising, because the enemy of your calling does not attack you in the wilderness. He attacks you at the gate. He attacks at the point of transition. Not because you are weak, because you are about to become dangerous. I cover this rising from self-sabotage, from the old patterns that would pull you back into the proving ground, just as you are stepping through the gate, from the temptation to return to what is familiar, because what is coming feels too large. I cover this rising from premature exposure, from the impulse to announce what God is doing before the foundation is set, from the need to show people the results before the results have fully formed. Let the fruit ripen before you pick it. Let the building stand before you invite spectators. I cover this rising from the opinions of people who did not see the fire. They will not understand the promotion. They did not see the price. And their confusion is not your concern. The only opinion that matters has already been spoken in the courts of heaven. And that opinion is sealed. I cover this rising from the enemy who will try to convince you that the verdict was wrong, that you do not deserve this, that the fire was proof of your failure, not proof of your selection. That voice is a liar. It has been a liar from the beginning, and the fire that proved you is the same fire that silenced every legitimate accusation. What remains after the fire is beyond accusation. It is verified, and verified means final. Now I declare over your life, with the full weight of everything this message has carried, you are the one who was tested at the highest level. You are the one who did not break. You are the one who chose faith when logic offered nothing. You are the one who stayed when leaving would have been easier. You are the one who got up the morning after the worst night and kept walking. You are the one whose silent endurance moved heaven to attention. You are the one the fire was built for. And you are the one the fire could not destroy. You are proven. You are sealed. You are verified. You are commissioned. You are sent. It is finished. It is recorded. It is yours. Do not say Amen yet. I want you to sit in this for a moment. Let the weight of what was just declared settle into your bones. Let it sink past your mind, past your doubts, past the survival patterns, and into the deepest place where truth is stored. Let it land there. Let it take root. Let it become the foundation that you stand on tomorrow morning when you wake up and the old voice tries to tell you the fire is still burning. Let this truth be louder than that voice. Let this truth be the first thing you reach for. What awaits you now is something that those who have walked this path before you struggle to put into words. A convergence of everything you have suffered and everything you are becoming. Some call it purpose fulfilled. Some call it destiny realized. Some, those who have felt its fullness, can only describe it as a destiny's embrace. A moment when the arms of your calling finally close around you, and the distance between who you were and who you were always meant to be disappears completely. That embrace is not far. It is here. And it is reaching for you right now. In Jesus' name, Amen. One more thing before you leave this space. You are not the person you were when you pressed play. Something has shifted. Something has been declared. Something has been sealed over your identity that was not there before this message began, and you can never go back to not knowing. You can never return to the version of yourself that believed the fire was pointless. You can never again look at your suffering and see only pain, because now you see the architecture, now you see the engineering. Now you see the hand of the refiner and the reflection of his face in the gold that the fire produced. If this message brought clarity to confusion, if it brought peace to the chaos of your test, if it brought a name to something you have been carrying but could not describe, then let your like be your amen without words. A quiet agreement between your spirit and heaven that what was spoken here today was true. And now, I want to speak to you about someone, not you, someone else. While you were listening to this message, a face came to mind. You know exactly who I am talking about. Someone who has been carrying a weight that no one else can see. Someone who has been fighting a battle they cannot explain to the people around them. Someone who keeps showing up every single day, even though everything inside them wants to stop. Someone who looks fine on the outside, but you know that something deeper is happening beneath the surface. Someone who has been unusually quiet lately. Someone who has pulled away from people and places they used to love. That person needs to hear this. Not tomorrow, not when you remember, today. Because this might be the moment they realize that their test has a purpose. This might be the confirmation that their fire was never meant to destroy them. This might be the message that stops them from giving up. Send it to them right now. Text it, share it, forward it however you need to. Your act of sharing is not a favor to me. It is a mission. And that person's spirit has been waiting for exactly this. Go in peace, chosen one. Go in power. Go in the full, unshakable, fire-forged authority of one who has been tested at the highest level and found worthy. The fire is behind you. The promotion is ahead. And the God who tested you is the same God who will crown you. You are not leaving a message. You are leaving a season.